It's Friday, this is BBC London, and on the programme this evening. With 2 days to go, thousands of runners, spectators and supporters head to the capital for the 45th London Marathon. We'll hear memories of the first one.
I wish I could do it again, but I can't. I haven't done many great things in my life, but running a London Marathon, it was a great thing to have done.
Also coming up on the programme, a warning of transport for London. Intoxicated passengers could lose their lives if safety isn't improved. It follows a woman's death on the tube. Residents living next to a South London park have mounted a legal challenge to try and stop summer festivals going ahead. We'll explain why. And
cries, walks down the aisle, her mother's not by her side.
We speak to 1980s Bros singer Matt Goss about his latest single helping military veterans. Good evening, I'm Assad Ahmed. 2 days to go until the 45th London Marathon. Runners are nearly ready, barriers are being put in place, and many of us are fine-tuning our voices to make sure we can cheer on family, friends and others. And a fact you may not know about is that the event started just a few years after a UK ban on female marathon runners was lifted. It seems unbelievable now, but that was the case until 50 years ago. Women were not allowed to take part. Well, Matt Graveling has been speaking to Jean Coker, one of the women who completed the first London Marathon back in 1981.
A seemingly endless line of competitors streaming out of Greenwich Park.
44 years ago, around 7,000 runners became part of history. On Sunday, the London Marathon will host 57,000 people. 45% of these will be women.
Terrific to see her way ahead of the next girl.
But in 1981, the female field was just 4%.
And our first lady of the track.
Some of whom were interviewed on a bus ahead of the race.
I should be quite happy at the halfway stage. It's getting into the Isle of Dogs, I think, and in the middle of no man's land on that stretch. I'll be very glad to see that on the way back.
Jean Coker was one of around 300 women who signed up.
Do you want a really funny story?
Please.
Right. So they'd arranged for all of us to go to various places. And they'd really basically forgotten there were women in the races. So we got to Charing Cross and they hadn't unlocked the women's toilets. And that is a big issue before a race.
Marvellous run.
Jean's anecdote helps reflect some of the attitude women runners faced at the time. In fact, until 1975, women were only allowed in races up to a maximum of 6,000 metres, which is less than 4 miles.
And she's bettered it. She's bettered it.
However, 11 years earlier, Scottish runner Dale Gregg had defied these rules, attending a men's marathon and running the course.
Do you think it's right that girls should take part in these long-distance races with men?
I don't say they should run with men, but I say that if women want to run, they should be allowed to run if they want to, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be doing marathons. If men can do them, we can do them, and...
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
Well, I'll take you on right now, if you like.
3 years later in America, another defining moment. Catherine Zvitzer registered for the Boston Marathon using just her initials. When officials realised a woman was running, they did their best to intervene, but Catherine completed the race.
Women had been involved in track and field athletics since the 1920s, but road running, they'd only really started to get involved in the mid-1970s. One of the things that the London Marathon did was that it showed women that, that they could run marathons.
Jean says that in 4.5 decades, attitudes have changed. So has the course. Not the prettiest.
Well, it wasn't very pretty at all because, the whole sort of Dockland area was just a mud stretch, really. if you're stopping somebody from doing something because of their gender.
Joyce Smith already holds the UK record.
That's a nonsense. I didn't think of it as entering as a woman, as entering it as a runner.
How do you feel when you look at your medal now?
I wish I could do it again, but I can't. I haven't done many great things in my life, but running a London Marathon, it was a great thing to have done.
Matt Graveling, BBC London.
Yeah, great thing indeed. And BBC Radio London has a special day of marathon coverage live from 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. Mr. Eddie Nestor will be in Blackie. That's roughly the start line. Robert Elms is going to be at the Cutty Sark, just down the way, obviously in Greenwich. And you can listen on BBC Sounds or on 94.9 FM, the entire coverage. You can give a shout out to people you know, give a shout out to charities. All the details are there. And before then, for the build-up, you can sign up on our London Marathon group chat, which is via our Instagram account. Lots going on. Well, also coming up on this very busy programme tonight.
Prize walks down the aisle, her mother's not by her side.
Yeah, that's him. We speak to singer Matt Goss about his latest single commemorating VE Day. Now, Transport for London has been urged to deliver what's said to be a concrete plan to prevent intoxicated passengers being killed on its network. It follows the accidental death of a 31-year-old woman in a tunnel in North London last year. Our transport correspondent Tom Edwards is here, and this is from a senior coroner's report. Tell us more.
Yeah, Sarah Cunningham was a well-known artist, and last November in the early hours of the morning she walked into Chalk Farm tube station, into the tunnels there. She was under the influence of drugs and alcohol at the time, and she died after being hit by a tube train, and her body wasn't found for 2 days. 2 station staff, we know, were on duty. One was on a break, and she wasn't seen going into the tunnel. And today a coroner said that Transport for London should have, as you say, a concrete plan to prevent intoxicated passengers being killed on its network. The coroner went on to say the risk to the individual is not necessarily at the forefront of TfL corporate thinking. Now, the family of Sarah Cunningham, they've always said there were multiple chances for people to stop and intervene to stop Sarah Cunningham going into the tunnel and to stop this incident.
Quite strong words, I think, from the coroner. What's the reaction been to his comments?
Well, TfL have until June to respond to this, but they have put out a statement tonight. They say it will take the time to properly consider any recommendations and will respond to them in due course. However, it has already put in place actions following its own internal investigation. Wouldn't say actually what those actions are, but it does, this case, raise issues around staffing levels, the contentious issues on staffing levels, duty of care of passengers, even if they are intoxicated. And tonight the RMT union told us well-staffed stations are key to a safe and secure network, and we will continue to push that agenda with Transport for London.
Yeah, I'm sure they won't let that go lightly. Tom Edwards, thanks very much for that. Residents living next to a park have started a legal challenge to try and stop summer festivals from taking place. They say events at Brockwell Park in South London are causing long-term damage to nature. But Lambeth Council, which runs the park, insists summer festivals are good for the local economy and claim there is no ecological damage. Frank McCamley has a story.
Brockwell Park's mighty Hoopla Festival, full of people ready to soak up the sun and enjoy the music. But for some living nearby, it's not so fun.
We've got noise until 10 o'clock. We also have really invasive lights coming in because we've got I think they're called floodlights. They come all the way through, they come through the curtains as well. We are told that the noise is within a reasonable level. I find that extremely difficult to believe.
What about the state of the park afterwards? Can the children, once it's all come down, can the children run out and play?
Absolutely not. Like, once everything has come down, we find like bits of metal shrapnel all over the place. The grass is destroyed.
A group of locals are now taking legal action against Lambeth Council for what they are describing as unlawful festivals in the park.
We're challenging Lambeth Council's grant of a certificate of lawful development, which basically means that the applicant doesn't have to apply for planning permission for the events. And we think, based on legal advice, that they should be applying for planning permission.
They say they're taking this action after raising concerns that are ignored.
So we are definitely not trying to stop the events. We want to make that really clear. But we feel they've become of a scale and size which is unsustainable for this area.
Some businesses surrounding the park have told us the festivals can be really good for business and artistic growth. Others say they heavily rely on the footfall the events here bring. In the park, though, there's a mixed feeling.
It's a nice open space, so it's big enough for lots of people to come, and it's just nice to know that events are here so that you can always go to them.
It's a little bit problematic sometimes with the noise in particular.
It is good for the area. As I said, double-edged sword.
Lambeth Council has said it's received the legal letter and is considering it. In a statement, it also said it invests £500,000 a year maintaining Brockwell Park, and the events run for a short period before summer. The festival organiser, Brockwell Live, says it understands the importance of Brockwell Park to local residents and welcomes scrutiny and maintains open channels for dialogue with residents, councillors and community groups. But with this summer's lineup due to begin any time soon, the group here say they are not giving up their fight. Frankie McCamley, BBC London.
Well, now for a roundup of the day's other news in and around London. 15-year-old Deshun James Tuitt was murdered in Islington in 2022. Today, his murderer was jailed for life. Deshun was stabbed in Highbury Fields. The 17-year-old killer can't be named for legal reasons. He was sentenced to life with a minimum term of 15 years. Royal Parks is urging cyclists to slow down in a bid to prevent accidents and injuries. The Considerate Cycling Campaign, as it's called, comes after a survey by the Royal Parks charity found most Londoners think there should be a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit for bicycles. And passengers in Guildford, Reading, Wokingham, Redhill and Gatwick Airport could get a direct train service to the Midlands and north of England without changing trains in London first. Plans have been drawn up by the Arriva Group Grand Central to run direct train services between Brighton and Newcastle. If approved, it could start next year. So Pope Francis will be buried tomorrow. People around the world, and not just Catholics, have been mourning his death. And today, at St Mary's University in Twickenham, staff and students gathered in the chapel to celebrate Mass in memory of the late Pope. Layla Hayes was there.
A memorial Mass for Pope Francis. At St Mary's Catholic University in Twickenham, they gathered today to celebrate his life.
Can you put into words sort of how best we should remember Pope Francis?
I would say his concern for the marginalised, the poor, but everyone in between as well. He taught literature, and I always wondered whether that was actually a key to being able to understand the human condition and to speak with confidence every time he met someone in distress.
May the Lord say, His mercy endures for...
St Mary's is the only Catholic university in London, and the Pope meant a great deal to everyone here. The Vice-Chancellor was lucky enough to meet him twice.
One of my favourite quotes from Pope Francis was that he said, "To educate is always an act of hope." And that's something that I think we've taken very much to heart here as an inspiration for our work as a university.
These Catholic students told me they also have fond memories.
I think he was a really lovely man, and he was really good at striving to see Christ in everybody. I think that's something that he did really well, regardless of who they are or where they're from.
We were given a private audience with him, and he gave me a thumbs up, and then he said that I really appreciate your prayers, and I want to send you my blessing to your family and everyone that you will meet. So that's a very, very special moment for me.
And I actually got to meet him in person at the general audience, and he gave me a blessing. So that's a really that's a memory that I will cherish for the rest of my life.
He was a guiding light for many. And for these Catholics, Pope Francis will be sorely missed. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
From abusing officials to aggressive play, new research suggests unsporting conduct from adults on the sidelines of football pitches is influencing children's behaviour on the pitch. So the FA is encouraging spectators to report aggressive behaviour. Natalie Perks has this report.
If you're one of these parents watching their children play football, the chances are high that you've seen examples of when the game goes rogue. Entering the field of play, screaming abuse and even physical violence. This type of spectator behaviour is now a key priority for the Football Association. But is their campaign working?
Well, I was refereeing a game, under-8s girls team, and one of the parents from the other team just abusing me for cheating. And it all kicked off on the sideline, a lot of pushing and shoving, pushed his wife to the floor.
My husband has actually been punched when he was running the line, so yeah, I've seen physical violence break out and I don't think it's acceptable.
Assistant coach, his boy was on the pitch, had a bit of a to-do with another boy, they had each other around the throat, and a parent ran on to grab the kid and just grab the kid by the scruff of the neck.
Couple of things before we start, lads.
Dave Thomas has been a grassroots referee for 10 years.
The young children playing, they're looking to the adults for an example. And if you see the attitude on the sideline, if that's a poor attitude, you can guarantee that will then manifest itself on the pitch.
The London FA agrees that parents' actions off the pitch can be emulated by those on it. And its referees are saying that bad behaviour can start as early as 11.
It is important in life.
Anton Ferdinand spent a decade playing in the Premier League. Now a parent and mentor, he's helping London's FA to break the cycle of parental abuse.
Remember that when you're being abusive to a young child, that's going to stay with that child forever. The respect campaigns, what the FA are doing with grassroots football is fantastic. But until there's a deterrent, it's going to be hard to stop.
Stupid! The FA's urging people to report hate so unacceptable actions can be dealt with through tougher sanctions. But ultimately, it's the club who pays the price for poor parental behaviour and, of course, the children. Natalie Perks, BBC News.
Now, at the start of the programme, we heard about women not being allowed to run in marathons at all in this country until 50 years ago. That all changed, thank goodness, in time for the start of the London Marathon 45 years ago. 56,000 runners are going to be taking place on Sunday. You can imagine what? Half of them, I guess, will be women, which is great news. A lot of people preparing for that. But it's a really busy weekend of sport with lots of other big events taking place. Now, Chris Slegg is at the Excel Centre. He's been keeping an eye on the marathon and everything else. Tell us more, Chris.
Yeah, Assad, it's a sporting occasion, the London Marathon, like no other. And that's perhaps because it's not really the elite sport that is at the heart of it. Impressive as those runners are, that is really just a subplot. The thousands of people who've been streaming through XL this week all carry an inspirational story, and they're going to keep us captivated throughout Sunday. But the London Marathon is just one of several key events taking place throughout the capital this weekend. Too many to mention, but here now are just some of the highlights of what's going to be a marathon sporting weekend.
Crystal Palace's FA Cup semi-final is your Greenwich Park equivalent, the starting point of the marathon sporting weekend. As the Eagles rise, the career of young midfielder Adam Wharton does likewise.
It's obviously nice to get praised by people who are respected in the game, but there's always going to be people who criticise or have something to say, so I just try to take the praise, but at the same time, don't let it affect me too much.
Eubank Ben is your Cutty Sark, an impressive spectacle, and there's history. 35 years since their dads first did battle, Chris Eubank Jr. and Connor Ben face off at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
I see it being a one-sided beatdown. I see it being so ferocious, so dangerous, that people are wincing through the TV as I'm landing my shots.
Eubank Jr. admits it's tough not to have his dad's support after a falling out.
This fight, once it's over, there's a possibility that, things may be able to be reconciled, or there's a possibility that it's going to make our relationship even harder to rebuild. I don't know.
Many hit the wall by Tower Bridge, but London City Lionesses show no sign of dropping the pace. The Bromley-based club could be promoted to the WSL for the first time on Sunday.
I would be very proud if we achieve to promote the team this season. It will be wonderful for the project and a good step down. But as I said before, we haven't achieved anything yet.
And you're in the home straight when the Women's Champions League semi-finals roll around. Chelsea and Arsenal are used to domestic success, but both have work to do to stay involved in Europe.
No Women's Champions League side has ever overturned a 3-goal first leg deficit since the competition was rebranded, and Chelsea have got to do it against Barcelona, a team who've won 17 consecutive two-legged European ties. As for Arsenal, their hopes are a bit brighter. They only got a 1-goal deficit, but they're going away to Lyon. It's quite hard to see Lyon not scoring. So both English sides have really got their work cut out in these semi-finals.
Make it through all of that, and you might just need Monday off to recover. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Now, it's less than 2 weeks to go until the 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe, or VE Day. And getting involved in commemorations is pop star and former Bros member Matt Goss. He's recorded a track to support British veterans after seeing how US veterans are treated in America. Here's Anna O'Neill.
My father said, I miss my son, remembered by his favourite song on the radio.
After 25 years living in America, singer-songwriter Matt Goss is on a mission to instil some British patriotism with his new single, Not Forgotten.
I would often see the joy of how prideful, the Americans are. They go up to the serviceman or woman and say, thank you for your service. It's part of the psyche of the country, and I think it actually serves the country well.
103-year-old Harry Winter, who served in the RAF in the Second World War, is what most people might think of as a typical veteran.
Very, very few of us left now. I seem to be getting more acknowledgement in the last few years than I did in the earlier years.
And it's that acknowledgement that doesn't always come for veterans like Caroline.
I hid away for a long number of years. Unfortunately, when I was injured, there weren't the services that there are now for veterans. So I had to deal with a lot of it myself.
She suffered life-changing injuries in the line of duty as a 22-year-old.
I was shot a number of times. I got shot through the back, through my face, through my hand, and the fourth round went through my helmet.
Both Caroline and Harry are being supported by the Not Forgotten charity, which has been supporting all generations of Britain's armed forces for over 100 years.
I do see this as a baton passing between Harry's generation. We still have 135 from Harry's generation amongst our Not Forgotten numbers. Really, really important, because as a nation, we connect with the First World War, the Second World War, the poppy appeal. I think nationally that's kind of hardwired into us. Those who served have all contributed to what Great Britain stands for.
Caroline lost her sister Chrissy, who'd supported her through her injuries to cancer last year. Matt's song means even more to her because of that.
Richard asked me if I would come up and be part of this wonderful, wonderful single that Matt has put together. And I listened to the song, and I only literally had to think about it for a millisecond, because the words in it resonated so much.
A daughter cries, walks down the aisle, her mother's not by her side.
If I can use any part of what I can do and create awareness and a little bit of light on these wonderful people, then I'm going to continue to do it, because it's something that's very, very dear to me.
Not Forgotten by Matt Goss is available on all streaming platforms ahead of VE Day on the 8th of May. Anna O'Neill, BBC London.
Well, time for the weather forecast now, and Stav, a lot of marathon runners hoping for cool, damp weather on Sunday, so you can break the news to them.
Warm and sunny, that's right, Assad. Yep, it has to be me to do it. Good evening to you. It's turning warmer and sunnier this weekend. A bit of a grey day Saturday, but of course, as Assad said, marathon takes place on Sunday, and it will be fairly warm, and there will be some strong sunshine overhead. So good for the spectators, maybe not so great for the marathon runners. But we've got a weather front working in from the west all the while, and that's introducing more cloud this evening and overnight, and it will turn out to be thick enough for some spots of light rain. Mainly, I think, anything over the Chilterns, but there could be a little bit further north too, or pretty much anywhere. So that'll blanket the temperatures in 6 to 9 degrees. Across our region. There's that weather front, which will be squeezed out by this area of high pressure, which is starting to exert its force across the whole of the UK. So for Saturday then, we start off rather grey. There will be further spots of light rain here and there, mainly towards northern and western areas. We're starting to pull some drier air in from the east as we head through the course of the afternoon. Temperature-wise, it's still not too bad. The high teens, which is a little above par for late April. And then as we head into Sunday, the weather fronts get pushed towards the northwest of the UK. This high pressure really dominates the scene for most of England and Wales. So we start off on a fairly cool note. There could be a little bit of mist and fog in the home counties. That should lift quickly and the strong sunshine gets to work. Could see a little bit of fair weather cloud bubbling up into the afternoon. That might be some good news for the marathon runners, but it will feel warmer in that light easterly wind up to around 22 degrees. But it's set to get sunnier and warmer as we head into next week. Potentially, in fact, our region seeing the highest temperature of the year so far. The warmest weather of the UK. We could be up to 26 or 27 degrees. Assad.
Yeah, really warm temperature stuff. Thanks very much. Well, that's it for now. I'm back at 10:30 with our late news on BBC One. Hope you can join me then. But for now, from all of us here, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.